In this episode of the Ginger Pond Keeper, you can see the marginal plants are growing fast. I actually do some underwater filming again, and something else. What was it? Hello, my name's Andy, I'm the Ginger Pond Keeper. Welcome to episode 103. So, to start this episode, I'm going to take you back to January 2023, when I posted a video after what I've since called the Otter Clear Out. But rather than go back and discuss what the otter did and what I've done about it, I'm going to talk about what I had before it visited and therefore lost. So, back in December 2022, I had the following fish: 1 crucian carp, 42 rudd fry, 14 adult rudd, 1 tench, 4 carp. I was happy with this as a stocking. The crucian probably needed to move on, but it was a master at hide and seek, so it remained. The tench had done well in the pond for nearly 8 years, but there was a couple of issues that I'll mention in a bit. The rudd and rudd fry were doing excellently. The adult rudd had recently discovered they could eat the carp's food and that they were faster than the carp, which was fun. The carp were also doing well. I'd bought 2 smaller ones to help with the confidence levels in the original carp, and that had worked well. Those original carp were doing great, one a beautiful linear mirror, the other a perfect common. Both had reached 65 centimetres and were healthy. The common is the one you could see in my title clip. 65 centimetres wasn't massive, but big enough to look big in the pond without looking disproportionate, if that makes sense. They were still growing, albeit more slowly. They were without doubt my favourite 2 fish. The otter left me with just the rudd fry. Anyway, when it came to restocking the pond, I had a lot of considerations. Cost, what size of fish to get, when to restock, how long I didn't want to leave the pond and consequently the filters without any stock feeding, as it were, the biological component. I decided that I was going to keep the rudd and only add carp. Although the tench had done really well for a number of years, it was struggling to get enough food, with 4 carp and the older rudd getting the food before it could, and it had probably lost a bit of weight over the previous 12 months. Anyway, decision about carp was made easier in that VS Fisheries... Hold on. Before I talk about that, I'll explain about VS Fisheries. VS Fisheries is a fish farm that mainly produces carp for fishing lakes and is run by Viv Shears and Simon Scott, who carp anglers may well know from Corda videos and his own social media, as a fish scientist and in particular a carp expert. All the carp I'd lost to the otter were from VS Fisheries. Anyway, as I was saying, the decision was made easier as VS Fisheries could supply me some 2 summer carp within a matter of weeks, but unlike previous orders, I wouldn't be able to choose types as I was very late in ordering. So I ordered 4 carp and received 4 mirrors that have proven very successful in the pond. Hungry, healthy, aside from carp pox on one, but that's gradually receding somewhat over time and isn't really a problem. They're confident and they're growing well. They're great. Although, even after a great year of growth, they're noticeably smaller than my previous ones, and I am a little impatient at times. Also, I really wanted a common. I missed the linear too, but to be honest, the idiosyncratic scale patterns of the 4 mirrors were just as interesting in their own way, and I'm not after perfection anyway. But a common I did miss. So last summer, in spite of not really wanting too many carp in the pond, originally I was happy with 2, and 4 was plenty, but having a common and therefore 5 was better than not having 1 and only having 4, if that makes sense. So I ordered another carp from VS. I filled out the form and ordered a single C3, 3 summer, common carp and paid my deposit. The thinking on getting a 3 summer one was it would actually be the same age as the mirror carp I have, although would probably be bigger having spent another summer on the farm. That was the plan, although I would have to wait a while as the fishery harvests in the following winter, but that was fine. Except I'd made a mistake, which I wouldn't realise until much, much later, although to be honest, I'm really quite glad I did. Anyway, a week and a half or so ago, I was contacted by Simon at VS Fisheries to say they could deliver the C4 common to me on the 28th, and would that work for me? It did, so I agreed and started to get excited for my new fish. But hold on, C4, a 4 summer common, had they got it wrong? I checked back through the order form I'd emailed, and no, they do not got it wrong, I had. Unsurprisingly, I ticked the wrong box. In the space of about 10 seconds, I went from bemoaning my carelessness to being absolutely delighted that I'd be getting an older and therefore larger fish. Definitely a case of failure to success in less than a minute. So, last Wednesday, Simon Scott himself delivered my new fish to my house. I didn't do filming while he was here, although my son took the odd photos that you can see. To be honest, I was more excited to get my fish and really enjoyed talking to Simon and going through the process. Previous fish have come via a courier instead, and it was really interesting to meet and talk with him. The first job was to weigh the fish, as they're priced by weight. Then Simon transferred it to my tub so I could get a measure, more on that in a bit, and then he transferred it to my pond. It was great meeting Simon. He's definitely an expert on carp, and it was really interesting chatting about carp, ponds, lakes and even otters. It was also great how long he spent, both in sorting out the fish and just chatting, especially as I'm not a fishing lake ordering 100 or thousands of carp or anything. I've been impressed watching him on videos with his knowledge and enthusiasm, and if anything, it was even more so meeting him in person. So, the common. As you'll see, coming from the farm lakes, it's much paler than the carp in my pond, but as they did before it, it will darken over the next few weeks. It's an absolute lump, 13 pounds when weighed and 67 centimetres when measured. So the biggest fish I've ever had in my pond, and probably exactly what my old, larger pair would have reached by now if they'd still been with me, give or take. I'm flipping delighted with it. It's got some travelling knocks etc, but nothing to worry about, and I like my fish healthy and characterful. They're not show fish. It's appeared confident, helped by the mirrors no doubt, and after an initial period where it had that slight stress-related clamped dorsal fin, it's looked fairly relaxed in the pond and not particularly bothered when I'm around it. I'm not feeding much, and it has fed, although when I've tried to film it, it's come up with the others but not fed until I've left it alone, which is fine. It's properly great having a common again, having a bigger fish again, and in its own right it's a cracking fish, which will only get better as its colours enhance over time. And that's my pond done for stocking now. As I've said, I'll be reducing the rudd fry numbers this year, and I'll not be adding any more fish. My pond and filtration will cope fine with what I have, but more would be silly I think, both in terms of pushing the filters and in how the pond looks, especially as the fish grow. I've never wanted an overstocked fish soup of a setup. I did always want a multi-species stocking, but to be honest, experience has shown that rudd and carp work well together without problems and are a nice contrast to each other. So, as I said, sparing any disasters, that's my stocking done. The only additions will come from any spawning, most likely, or most inevitably, by the rudd, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. As you can see, the marginal plants are well on their way to growing back after their winter cutting. I'd guess that due to the mild winter, they're probably ahead of schedule, which I'm pleased about, as the pond looks rough without them. I'm obviously hoping for a problem-free year. Last year, 2023, after the otter, I really did have a problem-free year, and I'm hoping for the same this year. My skimmer pump's already died, however, but I was able to replace that by selling some other equipment, and hopefully there'll be no other equipment failures. The garden's a bit of a mess. There's a few half-finished jobs and a long to-do list, as you can probably see. And cash allowing, they're the priorities over the pond itself this year. I'm just going to do the regular maintenance, feed the fish lots and enjoy the pond. I think it needs stability and consistency over the next few years, and I think the outcome for fish and the pond as a whole will be all the better for that. There's no improvements I can really afford to make that will benefit the fish, and I don't think small amounts of tinkering will help. So, like I said, stability and consistency and time will do the job. Right, that's this video done. I hope you enjoyed it. I've kind of kept up with more frequent content. I'm probably not going back to weekly content, but I hope to be more regular with videos than last year, so please think about subscribing if you've not already. If you've liked this episode, please like. Please comment if you've any ideas or questions, and please share if you know anyone else who'd enjoy it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.